Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outliers Get to Know. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn, and I'm here with New York Times bestselling author Christina Baker Kline and acclaimed author Anne Burt to talk about their new psychological thriller, Please Don't Lie. Welcome, Anne and Christina.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah, it's so good to have you both here. This was such an amazing read. Thank you for this. I know, um, Christina, this is your first thriller, and Anne, you've worked on mysteries before, so maybe your first thriller as well, but just a little bit closer, maybe. So well done, ladies.
It was so fun to write. Thank you for
I
saying nice things about it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I can tell. It looked like it felt like you both had a lot of fun. I know that you two, from what I read, at least if I read everything correctly, you two have been friends for some years before writing this. So that must have just been a blast to get together and work on a project together.
Oh, it's great. We've worked on several projects over the course of our 25-year friendship.
Ah.
This is our first co-written novel, and in many ways, and not our last. This is a two-book series, both set in this fictional town of Crystal River, where Please Don't Lie takes place. But it certainly feels like something new and bigger and fresher for us as a team, as to write a novel together. It was just amazing, just a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, I will keep our listeners on tenterhooks for a little while, and we'll talk a little bit more about your collaboration later. Before we get into the book, why don't you get us started? Just tell us a little bit about yourselves and your individual writing journeys. And would you like to get us started, or?
Sure, absolutely. So I have a twisty and turny writing journey, a little bit like a thriller of my own. Have always written, always wanted to be a fiction writer. Life sometimes has its way with you. I got an MFA in creative writing when I was in my 20s, published a lot of short stories and essays, and then due to family circumstances and child rearing and having to work full time, had to put the novel piece on the back burner, but always wrote. I published essays. I published a couple of collections of essays, one called My Father Married Your Mother, another that was the first collab that Christina and I ever did in 2008 about face, women look in the mirror and talk about what they see. So that was feeding me for quite a long time, but I never stopped being most passionate about novels and writing novels. And I think, like a lot of people, it was when my children graduated from high school and went off to college, and I had still the full-time job and still the financial responsibilities, but the time opened up. And I just needed to pursue this passion. So I published my first novel, The Dig, in 2023 in my 50s. And I'm really proud and happy to say that I'm currently a full-time novelist and work
Yay.
both with Christina on our books and on my own solo projects.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I love that that you can have this dream and you are not limited by age or passion or anything like that. If you have drive and perseverance, you can do this, and I love that. I really
That's a
love that.
message to everybody, sharing it out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, great. How about you, Christina?
It is. That's such a good message. Um, this is my ninth novel. I've been writing for a long time. Unlike Anne, who had a huge, big corporate job, several of them that took her all over. I think one job was kind of based in Boston, and she was living outside of New York, so she was commuting. I never had that, but I was always teaching. And I had an editorial consulting business for many years. So for a long time, I sort of balanced my writing and motherhood. I have three boys, and teaching and editing. And then eventually, when I published a novel called Orphan Train, the book did well enough that I could pull back on some of the other things that had been taking so much of my time and attention. And so, in the subsequent years, I've been teaching as well, but not full time on a faculty and things like that. And
Mhm.
so it's just been a more flexible arrangement, which has been lovely. And it's also given me time to think more broadly, Anne and I had opportunities to collaborate. We've collaborated, as she said, a few different ways. We collaborated in a Hollywood writers' room. We've collaborated on brainstorming for a podcast. We did a book together, a nonfiction book together of essays, and then we just realized that we've been in the same book club together for 20 something years. We've read hundreds of books together, and our sensibilities are really similar, but in our own separate writing, we weren't able to explore some of the things that obsessed us. And in the case of Please Don't Lie, and the book that we're working on now that's coming out at the end of next year, another thriller, it was women's lives in the current day and how trends, in this case, self-help books. In the case of our next book, we're looking at the trad wife movement. How women live in the world today and grapple with self-esteem and who they are and their place in society. And so we're just using various lenses to explore that. I think Anne and I probably we do touch on those in our own work, but in my case, my recent novels have been historical or set in the past, at least in part. So it's just been a lark to work on this wonderful contemporary story together and really dive deep into women's lives today. So
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah, no,
really
I
fun.
love that. Yeah, no, it's great because obviously I did pick up on the self-help books and things like that. So I'm glad you explained that to us as far as, your intent there. Christina, while you're at it, from what I read on your Substack, this novel had an interesting road to publication. I think you mentioned it started as a podcast commission.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the wonderful thing about working with Anne and what this is a lesson, another lesson maybe for people, is that we knew we had something special in our friendship, in our working relationship. We're very compatible. And over the years, we've had a number of opportunities that came our way to sort of try out different ways of working together. And so, as I mentioned, we had an opportunity to work with a team, a production team in Hollywood. We did that for 3 months, and we came up with this amazing idea. And in the end, they wanted to take it in one direction, which was to be more of a police procedural. We wanted to take it in another direction. But we discovered doing that if we were, I don't know, 20 years younger or something, we probably would have left college and gone to Hollywood and worked in a writer's room together because we love the collaborative atmosphere that is. And we replicated it with this book because we work together, but we have an editor, we have a team of people, an agent, an editor. So it's kind of the same idea, isn't it, Anne? That like we have other people weighing in, but we're doing our own thing and we're sort of trying to figure out how it works. So yes, the podcast, as I said, we worked on a screenplay and then we developed an idea for a podcast presentation story. And when it came, we basically people. It was a few years ago when there seemed to be quite a bit of money, so people were throwing money around for ideas, and so Anne and I brainstormed a pretty comprehensive idea. And when it came time to sign the contract, our agent said, you guys should consider writing this. This is a really good idea. And we were like, but we just want to get paid for it now. And he was like, well, give it a few days and think about it. And we did, and we realized it was a really cool idea. So we went ahead and we wrote a really substantial outline about the size of a screenplay, 120 pages. And we wrote the first 3 chapters, and that was what we ended up selling the book with. And we got a
Wow.
2-book deal. So it was just this amazing opportunity that we kind of came at backwards. But what I wanted to say, and just to end my talking, because I'm hopping the floor here, but what I wanted to say that I think is a good lesson is that we were very adaptable about the ways that we could collaborate. We weren't quite sure what form it would take. And for anyone who's interested in working with someone else on a creative project, I would say be open to the different directions your work might go. We weren't sure, we didn't know 10 years ago that we would write a domestic thriller together or a psychological thriller,
Or
But
not pull it all together. Yeah.
right. And then it just kind of all eventually led in that direction.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's well, I guess thank goodness that your agent was able to identify that other opportunity
Yeah.
and felt comfortable enough with you to suggest that you, after all the work you had already put into it, just like, hey, well, you might want to think about this other avenue, and that it
Yeah.
obviously worked out for both of you. So,
It's
yay.
great. He saw it right away, honestly.
He did.
Even before, even on the idea level, he's like, I like you together. I like this idea of psychological thrillers with you as a team. And it's really impressive, that kind of creative thinking in general, when you have sort of another party who kind of comes in and says, have you thought about it this way? It is awesome when you can say, actually, no, and I'm going to keep thinking about it. So that he played that role for us very much so.
It's interesting because not everybody thinks that way. And the reason I left my previous agent is that she didn't want me to do anything other than the work I was known for and the work that I was publishing. And I felt really constrained by it. I didn't want to only do that. I wanted to explore other ways of writing and being creative in the world. And I didn't want to feel like I was being forced into a corner to do certain. And this amazing guy is just like, bring it on. Let's think big. Let's think of all kinds of ways of working. And so it's enabled Anne and me to have this flourishing that we might not otherwise have done. And I think he gave us the confidence to move ahead and and really write this book.
Boy, I tell you that sometimes that's all it takes, right? It's like you feel it, you think you have it, but you just need that affirmation in there somewhere sometimes. And yeah, even for someone who's written, as you said, 9 books, and someone who's written a number of essays in your own book, and other projects and things that you've both done together, that just that little extra push helped you, make that decision. And no, I think
And move
that's
out of
amazing.
our comfort zones, I think,
Yeah,
too. A lot of
yeah.
times when you're doing something that feels like it's working, you keep doing it, but it means that then you cut off other avenues that might
Hmm.
be equally sustaining and compelling to you. And so I think it just gave us an opportunity to explore this whole area that neither of us quite cover in our own individual work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, Anne, I noticed that you both have a home in New York. Is that why you all set the story in the Adirondack Mountains? And maybe if you would, just go ahead and give us an overview of the story while you're at it.
Sure, happy to. Well, we both live in New York City in apartments on very urban streets. With very few trees and no mountains. So there's a little bit of a difference from the Adirondacks,
Yeah.
but we're both East Coast born and bred, and have lived in places that involve mountains and small towns, and understand these communities from the inside out as well. So the Adirondacks were familiar enough to us that we felt like we could set our imaginary town in it, but also mysterious enough for us that we could really use the environment as a character in the book and create an atmosphere that felt, as writers, as sort of generative and potentially threatening as it does to the characters. So it's an insider-outsider view of the space that I think has worked really, really well for us.
Yeah.
So Please Don't Lie follows the story of Hayley Stone, who's a young woman, newly married, living in New York City, but just beyond some terrible tragedies in her family of origin. Her parents in Florida, where she grew up, died 2 years before the story starts in a terrible, tragic house fire, and her sister has just died recently of an overdose. So she's trying to not only escape her own past from Florida, but also escape a lot of the sensationalist journalists and podcasters and online trolls too, who are following her and saying, oh, there's something bad going on here. And she wants a new start with her husband. Her husband is not from New York City. He doesn't feel comfortable there. When his father dies and surprises him by leaving him the family house where he grew up in the Adirondack Mountains, they decide this is a fresh start. We're going to move here. And Hayley leaves really everything she knows, because everything she's known has kind of turned against her. So she and her husband Brandon moved to his childhood home. He starts to renovate it. They meet new folks there, including another couple. And Hayley is really drawn to this couple and wants to make the woman in her couple her new best friend, and the woman reciprocates. And then things start to feel maybe a little like there are secrets and lies in this town that are something that Hayley wasn't aware of. And it gets darker and darker. And maybe the past that Hayley's trying to escape is not as far away from her as she thinks.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, authors of psychological suspense or domestic suspense, you all have this gift of, I think maybe more so than any other of the subgenres of thriller, where you make us believe it could be every single person that we meet, which is exactly what you want to do, right? But it's just, I don't think I could do that. I just don't think I could do it to the point where you actually believe it could be every single person that they meet. And yeah, you did that for me, and it was such a fun ride, so to speak, to the conclusion. So
It
yeah,
was
it's
so
great.
fun to play with the way we all have masks. We all wear masks and we all have secrets. And especially when you meet someone and they become a fast friend, sometimes you skip over the slow getting to know someone so that you feel intimate with someone or connected to someone whom you actually don't know all that well. Do you have that experience? I have.
Mhm.
I've fallen in love with friends. Like I've very charismatic people who I've was got had sort of had, got stars in my eyes about who they were. And I realized months later that I didn't really know them very well, but I had this idea that we had this intimate connection. So we were playing with that in part, that idea of female friendships that are quick and very fun and very kind of fizzy, and you feel like you're connecting on all these levels, but then you realize, God, who are they? You know?
Right, right. And then that kind of that aching realization that you had it wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that just plummets into your stomach, and just that flush of like, oh my gosh, humiliation and all of that. And yeah, you brought out all of those feelings. I could recall it. I've been, like you said, I've been there too. And
I think
yeah.
we all have. I think one of the things that worked so well for Christina and me as a writing team is that we have a 25-year long friendship that is rooted in trust. It's rooted in intellectual trust. It's rooted in trust because we raised our families together and we are both now living these empty nest lives in New York City. We know each other and we have a lot of faith in each other. Like I know Christina as a writer, a thinker, and a person really well enough to know that I can dive into the really both murky space of writing a novel and the murky space of exploring mistrust because there's real trust between us. It works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, I would say another piece of advice to anyone thinking about this is that the most important component of collaboration, I think, is respect and trust. The two together, you have to fully respect the person you're collaborating with 100%,
Mhm.
because they're going to rewrite your work, you're going to rewrite their work, you're going to be, you have to kind of put aside your ego, but also believe that both of you not only want the best for the book, but kind of know how to get there. It might not be 100% what you were doing, but it's a process. And so Anne and I think of this voice that we've developed as as a third voice, essentially.
Mhm.
When we were originally working on the book, we were considering using a pseudonym or a nom de plume or what is the word, a pen name. And we kind of think of that third voice as as this other person who we are together.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like Beyonce has a persona that she kind
Sasha
of
Fierce.
lives. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Love Sasha
exactly.
Fierce. It's a great.
So if you don't mind, if we can kind of stay with this collaboration part a little bit here, for readers who might be curious about how the collaboration worked between you two specifically, um, and even writers who are maybe thinking about doing some type of collaboration, can you tell us about how your process worked? I have a collaboration that I did with a couple of my buddies, longtime buddies too, and we had where we basically quote unquote owned characters. And
Mhm.
so if those characters, and we wrote a series, so if those characters showed up in the other individuals' books, we got to veto certain things, so we had final say on characters. Now yours isn't kind of the same thing because you have really kind of one protagonist. So I was just kind of curious if you had a system yourself. I don't know, Christina, if
Yeah.
you want to get us started and
I'll get us started and Anne can fill in all the parts I forget. Um, we, as I mentioned, we took this idea. We had hammered out a rough idea, but it was maybe 10 pages. And then our agent was like, this is a book. This is a really fun book. So we sat down and we turned it into essentially a screenplay length outline, as I said. So it had dialogue and it had description, and we invented Crystal River, our little town, and we came up with all these characters. And then we wrote three chapters together, or I can't, I keep getting it wrong. I think it was 60 pages, but I cannot quite remember. Um, and then, and then we came to a moment where we weren't quite sure how to proceed because I had a novel deadline. I was working on my book, my other book for Mariner. And Anne said, let me take a stab at the rest of the book and let's just see. Got the outline here. We've got the idea. We've got our voice that we had established together in the first three chapters. And so Anne then finished the first draft. And I think like at that point, it ended up, our book is not terribly long. I think it's 265 pages. At that time, maybe it was 220 or something, I guess, altogether. And then she threw it to me, and I wrote the second draft. And then we just, after that, were completely, literally on the same page. We were in each other's apartments. We tried to be in person as much as possible. We
yeah.
were sometimes on Zoom, sometimes on Google Docs, and we were always on Google Docs, but we were sometimes separate. But as much as because Anne has a house in Connecticut and I go to Maine and was traveling some. And so, but as much as possible, we were sitting at each other's dining room tables in New York City, working 8-hour days. And eventually, we started reading the book out loud to each other. And because Anne is a much better reader than I am, she mostly read. She's a great reading voice. She sounds like a professional. She is a professional. And so I think we did that a total of 3 times, but it was all this multi-tiered process of revising, we were figuring out how to write a thriller together.
Yeah.
And what have I left out?
Yeah, I mean that's the timeline. That's the process of how it worked. I mean, I guess I would add again for people who are interested in different ways of trying it. It was clear to us from the beginning that we didn't want to do what you described, Tracy, of each person owning a character. That
Hmm.
what was most interesting just to us as a team was how could we find the right voice for this book? And how could we together move this forward and turn that voice into what worked and didn't sound like two authors? We wanted it to
Hmm.
seem like one. And for that to work, we really did have to start with some world building. And that sort of screenplay-like outline was our world building. So when I was working on this first draft, it was a combination of using that world that we both knew, so I wasn't going to really shock Christina, but also allowing myself to shock Christina sometimes. Because writing is writing and it goes where it goes. And sometimes you're like, I don't know, but I have to keep doing this. And so it was exciting, though, to know that Christina was going to be surprised and I hoped delighted. And sometimes, not delighted, but I trusted that when you weren't delighted, Christina, it was because you had an idea that you could build off of mine. And then the same thing would happen after you came into that idea. Like we really became what we have then called the yes and team. There's a philosophy from improv theater of yes and, right? So if somebody's up there making an improv and somebody else wants to be in the scene, you can't say, no, that thing that you're pretending didn't happen. You have to say, yes, and I'm going to add something onto it. And when we started working, that became our philosophy. And that's how we built this world together.
Yeah,
And
no is such
actually,
a creativity crusher, isn't it? Sorry about that,
yeah.
Sadie. Yeah, it's such a
Um,
crusher.
Right. No, is a creativity crusher. I was just thinking as Anne was talking that a lot of the twisty, turny end of the book, actually did map out. Like we were sitting together, there was an end, but we just kept ratcheting it up and figuring out new things. And I think one reason the book tends to surprise people who aren't expecting to be totally surprised is that we surprised ourselves and each other. We were saying, yes, and what if this then happens? It was this kind of amazing uh uh the whole last 50 pages of the book just feels like a propellant, that you're
Hmm.
just it's this exciting way of moving forward and considering all the things that could happen and narrowing down to what really does happen.
That's right. And a lot of the revision process was actually going back to the beginning of the book and saying, how do we plant exactly what we need to plant now that we understand where we want
Right.
the direction and misdirection to go, and make sure that, we're keeping these really smart, engaged readers who love to figure things out, part of the process, right? We want people
Right.
to be constantly trying to figure things out because that's what readers who love this genre do. And we wanted to see if we could just keep them on edge enough to be surprised by the ending.
Yeah, you hear writers say many, many times about what a lonely process the writing process is, and this is where I had loved being in a collaboration is that you're brainstorming and you're feeding off of each other, right? And we can't all think of everything, and so if you've got two other smart people or one other smart person in the room with you, you can really take that plot, that story, those twists, those reveals and things to a whole new level that you might not have been able to do on your own. And so I'm just kind of curious, do you think that you'll brainstorm with each other on your non-collaboration works?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, we
Yeah.
always have for 25 years, we've talked about our works in progress. And as I said, I think we're in a book group together and have read hundreds of books together. So I think we've developed a vocabulary for talking critically about the work we read. So I really value Anne's opinions and also her insights. And when I was writing a pivotal scene in my last novel, The Exiles, there was a scene at the end that I had. It was actually kind of like a thriller. There was it was a thrillery scene. It was the most dramatic scene in the book, and I had to get it right. I had to get the pacing right. And Anne was super helpful in reading it and helping me make sure that it was believable and that it unfolded in the right pacing. And she had great ideas about it. So we've definitely relied on each other for that kind of help.
Yep,
Good.
always, always. I mean, I know that, Christina has had, ever since Orphan Train was published, a huge writing career with a lot of, pushes and pulls on her time. But one of the things that is so amazing about working with Christina is, as a writing partner, is she always makes time. If I have a paragraph, if I have a page, if I have a whole chapter and I just need her, she makes time, which is,
Hmm.
again, part of why now that we're writing a book together, I knew that no matter what else was pulling either of us in another direction, that the commitment is there. When we're working together on this work, it is 100% in for both of us. And neither one of us is going to let the other one down. I know it for a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both take it really seriously, and I think another thing is that we're all, at least on my end, I always want to impress Anne. So I'm trying to, like, she's my audience for the things I add. So like I'm always happy when she's like, I love that.
I know we text. I'm like, ooh, ooh, I love this. I love this. I love this. Um, it's two-sided. Again, here's more piece of the advice. We are impressing each other. We want to give it to each other. We also have to be unafraid to give each other our most unfiltered, unedited, rough draft writing.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
we have to
yeah,
trust each other with that. And as you know, that is tough for any writer
it
to do,
is.
to
Yeah.
let your most vulnerable work go to another person. But I'm okay with Christina seeing things that I have not yet felt like I've spent the time to hone in, because we're inside each other's process in this way. We are really
Hmm.
a team.
And it enables Anne to just be really creative, as she's working on that draft. Like in Please Don't Lie, she was able to try things that you might have pulled back from, knowing that I would be able to step in
Yep.
and figure out what the next part was or whatever. So it's really been fun. We haven't talked at this granular level about this before, so it's fun to, I mean, we get asked this question a lot and we talk about it, but sorry, I hope it's interesting for your.
No, I was just looking at the time. I'm like, I could talk to you to the two of you about this for probably another hour because I love this kind of thing, but I want to be very respectful of your time as I promised that I would be. But before we go, can you give us a hint of what's Christina, you've already hinted a little bit about what's coming up next. Sounds like you're doing another collaboration, but if you want to talk about your individual works and your next collaboration, that'd be great. Either one of you.
I'll just jump in and say I have a novel coming out next May called The Foursome. It is set in Civil War era North Carolina, which is not so far from where you are.
Yeah, it's great.
And I'm very excited about that. And then we have a new book coming out next December, and it's called, well, the working title at least is Watch Her Lie. And
Okay.
it involves a trad wife influencer who disappears. And it's set in Crystal River again. So we're in the world of this novel of Crystal River. So,
Okay.
but
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah, without any spoilers, some of the characters that you meet in Please Don't Lie will show up in Watch Her Lie as well. So it's a
Okay.
treat for you who want to read Please Don't Lie to know that there's more to come, more to come. My next solo novel is called The Feather Palace, and I've finished a draft and will be returning to that, and I'm hoping that will be ready to be out in the world in 2027.
Okay. Great. Well, we
Tracy, I
will
want to
look.
just tell you one thing. I
Yeah.
saw you holding
Yeah.
up the hardcover of our book.
Yeah.
Have you taken off the dust jacket?
Yeah,
No.
do it on camera. It's fun.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think
All right.
you're,
So we have here.
yeah, okay. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
see
That
how
is
pretty it
so
is?
pretty.
It's
Isn't that
so
beautiful?
unusual. And we've never seen anything like that, that the dust jacket of
Oh, I love
hardcover
that.
is
That's such
actually,
a wonderful surprise, isn't it? It's
It's
like
a
opening a little
special.
present.
I know it's a special thing about having the hardcover. You don't get that on any of the other editions, just the hardback.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for for letting me know. I would have gone and never investigated that because I rarely do look at the,
I know.
yeah. Wow, that's great.
Just a,
Thomas and Mercer, they do such a wonderful job with the covers, and so it does not surprise me that they do something cool like that with the,
yeah,
yeah.
we absolutely love it. They've been great to work with.
Oh, that's really, really good to hear. Well, folks, when this episode airs, I'll hold it back up here again. Please Don't Lie will be out, so be sure to order your copy today. You can check out Anne's website at anneburtwriter.com and Christina's at christinabakerkline.com. Uh, Ladies, do you want to tell us what social media platform you're most active on and maybe your handle?
Probably, I would say Instagram would be the place to find the most updates. And that's the same as my website, but with underscores, Ann underscore Burt underscore writer.
Okay.
And
All
I'm
right.
just Baker Kline. And Instagram and Facebook, I guess.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, I really, really appreciate you both taking the time to chat with me today. I can't wait for readers to travel to the Adirondacks in this twisty new book you have.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank
It's
you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much. And many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll be back soon with another great read.